Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, President-elect Donald Trump is moving quickly to put together his new administration. And one judge blocks a rule in Louisiana requiring the Ten Commandments be displayed in public school classrooms.
And we had plenty of sunshine and much cooler today as compared to yesterday, but we're going to warm up just a little bit for Wednesday. Details in a few minutes.
Dedicated to Southern and Eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. We start tonight with breaking news out of Louisville. A workplace explosion resulted in at least 11 people going to the hospital. According to our sister station, that explosion was reported at approximately 3 p.m. on Payne Street in the Clifton neighborhood. It happened at a business that manufactures ingredients for soft drinks. Officials had asked the public to avoid that area while crews responded. The Louisville mayor said a short time ago that no one died, and the cause of the explosion is still not known.
Well, as advertised, we had plenty of sunshine today and temperatures were in the upper 50s and low 60s, which is where we should be for this time of year anyway. Here's the latest with live pinpoint Doppler radar. All is quiet across eastern Kentucky. We're starting to see those false returns or ground clutter, if you will, being picked up at this time of night. But we have a beautiful sunset right now on Buffalo Mountain, and temperatures still in the low to mid 50s, even low 60s. Look at Harlan, 60 degrees, 61 in Jonesville, otherwise 50 in Wise, 51 in Pikeville. Logan's at 52, 53 is the current temperature in Jackson, 54 in Hazard, 55 the Double Nickels over towards the Williamsburg area. Then you go to Somerset as well as London, seeing temperatures around 57 degrees. So when you wake up in the morning, it will be a chilly start, if you will, across portions of the area. Look at Manchester, overnight low of 32. Otherwise, upper 30s and low 40s across the majority of the area. Now, tomorrow we'll start the day off with mostly sunny skies, but the clouds will thicken as we go throughout the afternoon hours. That's part one of the story. Part two is rain chances. We'll talk about how much we can expect across eastern Kentucky in the first alert forecast in a few minutes. Steve.
Eric, thank you. President-elect Donald Trump has not made a public appearance since last week's election, but he has stayed busy working at his Florida estate. That includes phone calls with world leaders, including Argentina's president, who he spoke with today. Trump is preparing to shift America's foreign policy away from what it was under President Biden. CBS's Christian Benavidez has the latest from West Palm Beach, Florida.
President-elect Donald Trump is previewing his priorities in the new administration with the announcement of his first cabinet picks.
Lots to do. We know the clock is ticking, but I think we'll hit the ground running.
On the foreign policy front, Trump's chosen Congressman Mike Waltz for National Security Advisor. The first Green Beret to serve in Congress has echoed Trump's complaints about the war in Ukraine.
Let's end this war in Ukraine. Let's pivot to deal with China. Let's secure our border.
Florida Senator Marco Rubio will also help shape foreign policy as Trump's expected pick for Secretary of State.
How close is this country to being dragged into some sort of global conflict? We now have troops from North Korea side by side with Russians on the ground in Ukraine.
Trump also announced he's picked former Governor Mike Huckabee to serve as ambassador to Israel, demonstrating his commitment to Benjamin Netanyahu's government, even as it fights the war in Gaza.
For Trump, foreign policy begins at the border, and the first people he's named to his administration have been tasked with a southern border crackdown and deporting millions of undocumented immigrants.
South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem is Trump's choice to head the Department of Homeland Security. DHS includes Border Patrol and Immigration and Customs officials.
Make no mistake, an invasion of our country is happening, and our border is a war zone.
Trump has also named former ICE Director Tom Homan as his border czar. Homan will work with, but not under, Noem. He will answer directly to the president. Christian Benavidez, CBS News, West Palm Beach, Florida.
Stephen Miller, Trump's newly named Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, will also be heavily involved in border policies. He, along with Homan, helped craft the zero-tolerance immigration policy during Trump's first term in office that resulted in some migrant families being separated at the border. Donald Trump's lawyers and the Manhattan District Attorney's Office agreed to delay activity in the hush money case until November 19th. That will give Trump's lawyers time to make new arguments on how his election victory impacts the case. The judge was expected to rule whether to overturn the business fraud conviction based on this summer's Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity. But instead, both sides agreed to a motion to delay existing deadlines. The Supreme Court rejected former Trump Chief of Staff Mark Meadows' request to move his Georgia election interference case to federal court. He wanted the swap to be able to raise immunity claims. Last year, Meadows was indicted in Fulton County on racketeering and other charges tied to his efforts to change the outcome of the 2020 election in the state. He pleaded not guilty. President-elect Trump is expected to meet with Republican congressional leaders tomorrow in Washington. The visit comes amid jockeying in both chambers for key leadership positions. CBS's Nicole Skenga has more on that from Capitol Hill.
The House will be in order.
Congress returned for a lame duck session Tuesday. Earlier in the day, House Speaker Mike Johnson promised to hit the ground running on what he called the mandate voters gave to President-elect Donald Trump.
The American people want us to implement and deliver that America First agenda. And we have to do that while we have that energy and that excitement.
Johnson said he expects Republicans to maintain control of the House, even as more than a dozen races are still being decided.
We've got to, as Democrats, work with the incoming administration whenever and wherever possible and strongly disagree when necessary.
Those newly elected members of Congress are arriving here on Capitol Hill and diving into freshman orientation.
It's a huge honor, and it's starting to feel real to me.
It'll be an exciting time with President Trump in the White House.
Senate leadership also welcomed incoming senators as speculation swirls over who will win the race to replace outgoing GOP leader Mitch McConnell.
I'll be leaving this office after 18 years. I've been the majority leader, I've been the minority leader. Majority is a lot better.
With the new Republican majority, Senators John Thune of South Dakota, John Cornyn of Texas, and Rick Scott of Florida are vying to be the next leader. A secret ballot election is scheduled for Wednesday. Nicole Skenga, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
House Speaker Johnson also faces a private vote tomorrow. He will need a simple majority to once again become the GOP nominee for Speaker, but he will need a 218-member majority in January during a floor vote of the entire House to secure the job. A federal judge has sentenced a Massachusetts Air National Guard member to 15 years in prison. Jack Teixeira pleaded guilty to leaking highly classified military documents about the war in Ukraine. Earlier this year, Teixeira pleaded guilty on 6 counts of willful retention and transmission of national defense information under the Espionage Act. In Georgia, the trial of murdered nursing student Laken Riley starts on Friday. Today, Jose Ibarra waived his right to a jury trial and opted to have a judge decide his guilt or innocence. He is charged with killing the Augusta University student in February. The case quickly became a spotlight for the immigration debate after investigators found Ibarra entered the country illegally in 2022. The prosecution is seeking life without parole. Former Republican vice presidential nominee Sarah Palin has a new trial date for her defamation case against the New York Times. A federal judge in New York scheduled it for April 14th. Palin was granted a new trial earlier this year after a federal appeals court discovered significant issues with the first one in 2022. That is when a jury determined Palin failed to prove the New York Times was liable for defaming her in a published editorial. Back here in Kentucky, police in Berea are investigating after a string of car break-ins in the city. Police say the thefts happened in the areas of Pinnacle View Drive, Vinery Drive, and Phyllis Street. As shown in a Ring camera video, one of the theft victims says a man is seen entering from a person's backyard with a gun in his hand. Police say they believe 3 male suspects are involved. No arrests have been made so far. A Louisiana law requiring the 10 Commandments be displayed in public school classrooms is blocked, at least for now. According to the report from The Hill, a federal judge ruled the law unconstitutional and granted a preliminary injunction. That means the state will not be able to enforce the law while the case plays out in court. This comes after a group of parents sued the state. The chicken wars have ignited again, but this time it's about who gets to call their recipe original. Last week, KFC sued Church's Texas Chicken, alleging trademark violations. The KFC said Church's abruptly started using the phrase original recipe in its advertising and promotions and has ignored letters objecting to the ads. In the disputed promotions, Church's posted photos of its fried chicken with the text, "Our original recipe is back." Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, we'll show you some ways you can keep money in your wallet while enjoying the holiday season.
And after seeing a cool Tuesday across the area, the rain chances will pick up, and we're going to warm up for the day on Wednesday. Details in the First Alert forecast in a few minutes.